Number 51, if equal volumes of the four acids at a concentration of 0.5 molarity are each titrated with a strong base, which will require the greatest volume of base to reach the equivalence point? Now, a lot of people tend to get this kind of a question wrong, but just think simple. If you guys are talking about this idea of titration, well, the main equation you use for the titration is what? The whole M1V1 is equal to M2V2, where you're talking about molarity of the acid, volume of the acid is equal to molarity of the base and volume of the base. So long story short, I don't care what quality of acid or base you're talking to me about. What mainly matters in the whole titration process is the quantity. What is the concentration and what is the volume you have? I mean, just take a look. It literally says equal volumes of the four acids at 0.5 molarity concentration. Same volume, same concentration. So if the question is asking about what's going to have the greatest volume of base, no, they're all going to have the same volume, because once again, quality is not what matters in terms of titration. I mean, it matters in some senses. So for example, I mean, if you were to, let's just kind of compare the titration curve for two different cases, just for the heck of like explaining. If you have weak acid being titrated with strong base versus strong acid being titrated with strong base, I mean, yeah, titration curve is going to look a little bit different. Let's call that 7 and 14 and 7 and 14. Obviously here is 0. Well, you probably start kind of like up there, maybe not too low, because this is a weak acid and it's being titrated with strong base. So once it titrates, it's going to go something like that towards like 12 or 13-ish. But the thing is, that titration point, right, the equivalence point is probably going to be above 7, because your acid is weak and base is strong. So yes, in this particular sense, the quality of acid and base absolutely matters. But we're talking about, once again, what volume we need, right? And in terms of volume, right there, that volume, versus if I were to do the other one, if you had a strong acid to begin with, you probably like start down there, and then you go all the way, titrate, and the equivalence point would be at 7, because they're both strong, and then it's going to level off like this. But what I'm trying to tell you is, in terms of the volume needed, remember, this is the volume right here on the x-axis, right? The volume needed for both cases is still the same. I want everybody to understand. So the quantity is what matters, and the quality has nothing to do with how much volume you need, and that's why it makes answer choice D correct.